Well, good morning, everybody. Hopefully everything's working here. Welcome to another Ask the Cheeseman. We'll just wait for a few to come on and I'll check what the stream health is like in a second, see what YouTube says it's like. Says it's good. All right, we'll wait for a few more people to turn up before we start and we'll go from there. So good morning so far to Roy, Kep and Bethany, and the moderator, or as Kim likes to call herself, the Terminator, is in the building. So it's good. Okay. So still no indication from my dashboard on how many people are there. I've got, what's that? Truss? Well, good morning to you. Anyway, all under control. All right, let's start the show, shall we? And g'day to Nora.
Well, g'day, curd nerds. G'day, curd nerds.
Well, g'day, curd nerds.
Well, g'day, curd nerds.
Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. And I'm back. So welcome to Ask the Cheeseman. This is episode 44. This show is where you can ask all your home cheese-making questions and I'll attempt to answer them. So a couple more hellos. G'day to Nora, Sada, John, Deep South Texas, Paul, g'day, how are you? Yeah, just a few housekeeping things. We may cut the show short by 15 minutes, so I think it will run for 45 minutes this morning. Kim and I are flat out with the e-commerce part of the store, so not only cheese stuff but soap, candles and bath and scrubs, so we need a little bit of time back to ourselves, so we'll do that. A shout out to our patrons this week. So we've got some new patrons on board. We've got Mark and David. Thank you very much for your contributions. If you want to follow the show and become a patron of the show as well, Kim will pop a link, or it's actually in the information below, to patron.com. So we've got some questions already. So let's start. We've got Paul has said, number one, what are we talking about? Paul has said, I've tried your halloumi recipe recently, but had a few problems. One, your recipe does not specify any acid at all, but without some citric acid, the milk did nothing at all after the rennet. What am I doing wrong? Yeah, with halloumi, you don't add acid. It's not part of the recipe. Technically, what the Cypriots do is use raw milk. Now, because I don't use raw milk, we simply rennet the milk and it goes into a solid. So maybe you're not using enough rennet is what I believe you're doing wrong there, Paul. A professional trailer, yes, we do all that. John, thank you very much for the super chat there. That's one thing I forgot to mention. If anybody wants to donate during the show, there's a little, I'm tickling it, it's near there somewhere, the little $ where you can contribute during the show and those proceeds go to us. Kim and I do keep the show going every week. Brendan said he read that adding calcium chloride to milk when making mozzarella can inhibit the curd stretching. What's my opinion on this? Have you heard this before? Brendan, yes, I have. I have heard it, but I tend, I'll start again. When I teach my cheese making classes, which happen about once every 2 months, we use pasteurized and homogenized milk, and we do add calcium chloride because we find that you don't get a curd set at all if you just use rennet alone. Now, I have heard that calcium chloride or extra calcium does inhibit the stretch of the mozzarella. However, with the recipe that I've used, I have found that it doesn't inhibit the stretch at all. I do use a fair bit of rennet, so one of those Fromage 50 tablets, which one tablet is for 50 litres of milk. We tend to use about half a tablet. So we over rennet quite strong to get the curd set as well. And when it comes time to stretching it, as long as they've microwaved it at least for 2, maybe 2.5 minutes, a very stretchy mozzarella, and we don't seem to have any trouble. But I have heard that the extra calcium does inhibit stretchiness, but I don't find that when we make it. Okay, next question is from Marcus. Marcus says, hello, I've tried my first farmhouse cheddar blue, needs a bit longer, but has great potential. Very cool. Well done, Marcus. Marcus is from a little island between Victoria and Tasmania called, what is it? Flinders Island, I believe, if I remember correctly. But yeah, very cool indeed. Okay, Fat Tape Records. G'day, Gavin. Can I please have a shout out to Charlie and Bethany? We love your videos. Shout out to Charlie and Bethany. And Sylvia says hello from Toronto. Now, Chris says there are 2 people in the world who like cheese. Oh, sorry, 2 people. I've mucked up the joke. There are 2 types of people in the world: people who love cheese, jokes, and liars. Yes, all right. That's an average joke, but I did like it. Bakia said hello from. I can't pronounce that, but is somewhere in Algeria. G'day to you too. So that got our first African person on board. Not the first time, but yeah, today. Paul says, so maybe I didn't add enough calcium chloride to my milk. Yeah, I tend to do that, Paul. I do add calcium chloride when I make halloumi, because if I'm using homogenized milk, don't get a curd set. Not a proper one anyway. And Bethany says, I notice you sell a vegan cheese kit on your website. Will you be doing a vegan cheese making video? Yes, I will, Bethany, but not this side of Christmas. I've already got all the videos, the footage shot for between now, because I did a big bulk cheese run a couple of weekends back on Melbourne Cup Day here, and I got a few how-to videos as well around cheese making equipment. So I've got enough video footage up until Christmas. I think I'm going to take a break for a couple of weeks, and then get back into it again. And vegan stuff up there, like that vegan cheese kit, purely from nuts. I think cashews, almonds, and can't remember what the other nut was, but yeah, you can make some pretty good cheeses, or a facsimile of a cheese. Seeing cheese is technically milk, rennet, and starter cultures and salt. Okay, this is Anarchy, says hello. Michael, g'day, and Legendary Gaming Guy, g'day. Charlie, hello, Charlie, how are you? Got to cut into the Bel Paese the other day, very nice. I would highly recommend it. Yeah, it's one of those really interesting cheeses that you don't need a cheese cave for. And welcome on board, Charlie, too, for the first time. You don't need a cheese cave for it. It ripens naturally in the normal kitchen fridge at 4 degrees Celsius. So a very easy cheese to make. You get a fairly decent sized wheel. It's nearly 1.5 kilos, nearly 2. It depends on the milk yield. It's pure white. Well, the one I made anyway was pure white, but it tasted amazing, and it's one of Kim's favourites as well. Well done, Charlie. Marcus says, made a Stilton about 4 months ago. Do you think I should try it? Yeah, why not? The trouble is, trying to find a cheese trier is quite difficult. Somebody on the show, I think it was last week, said use an apple corer, the long, thin apple corer. It's got some serrated bits on the end. Push that in and use that as a cheese trier. And then you'll see how much blue is developing on the inside as well. And then you can just cap that off. Excuse me. So, yeah, give it a try. I think it'll probably be okay by now. You get a fair bit of blue vein development inside. Just a sip. All right, next one. Questions are coming in very fast and thick here. Or if I have half a cup of liquid run out of my Jarlsberg, does this mean I need to press at more than 23 kilos? Yeah, it's quite heavy cheese, and yeah, so it's a quite heavy pressing. Now my press only goes up to 50 pounds or 22.5 kilos, whatever it is. But yes, you probably would have. Look, if it's developing some eyes, that would be fantastic, but you'll have to check if it starts to bulge during that warm ripening period. Ali from Recipe says, your recipe for cream cheese is not like Philadelphia cream cheese from Kraft. How to make it similar? Well, so that's the point, Ali. We don't want it similar like Philadelphia cream cheese. It's not the same product. Philadelphia cream cheese is processed cheese, and we're trying to stay away from processed cheese. Okay, Bethany says, thanks. Can't remember what for. Oh, the vegan. Yes, right. Paul says, thanks for the mozzarella recipe. It came out great and it was easier to make than Mad Millie recipe. Yeah. Look, I've tried some of the Mad Millie recipes. Halloumi in particular was quite good. Only needed a minor alteration, but most of the recipes in those books are pretty good, those kits. So they're like behind. They're small, inexpensive, and they're fairly good. Anyway, Lucas says, I love your videos and cheese. Always excited for the new videos. Question, where do I get my maturation box? So it depends on which one. There's two types I use. The red one that I use is, we do sell them in the shops. We order them in bulk. But they're a Decor microwave steamer. And it's just got a flat rack on the bottom to keep stuff off the whey that gets expelled out of the cheese. But yeah, we do stock them in the shop at littlegreenworkshops.com.au. JK, I can't even pronounce that. Hello, I made mozzarella first time. Your fault. Yeah, I know. Made curds right after It made curds right after I added the citric acid. Any ideas? Yes, either too much acid or the milk was too warm. That'll make it curdle straight away. If you add the citric acid at 13 degrees Celsius, if I remember rightly. But yeah, either too much acid, so taper that off a little bit next time if it curdles straight away. Mike says, just made your cheese for Monterey Jack. It's in the press. Well done, Mike. Legendary Gaming Guy, your queso cotija guide was great. Thanks for making amazing content. I really appreciate everything. Your vids always make my day. Thanks very much, LGG. Back here says, what's the difference between microbial and microbane rennet? As some cheese makers put it as ingredients. I think they're the same. So there's three main types of rennet. There's animal rennet, microbial rennet, and fermented rennet. So they're the three main types that I know of. I don't know if there's any others. Oh, and vegetable rennet, which comes from either thistles, fig sap. So yeah, cardoon thistle flowers is the other natural type of rennet you can use. There we go. So Charlie's got another question. Gavin, you have two Penicillium Roquefortis listed, strong and mild. What cheeses would you use the two strengths? So if you want a really stinky blue, like say Roquefort or Stilton tends to be quite strong as well, but that's more on the creamy side. I'd use a strong for that. For the mild, I'd use, if I was making Petite Blue, because you don't want too much blue to overpower it, Also, I've actually got a cheese in the cheese fridge at the moment called Saint Moncel, which is a French hard cheese. I've used a milder style penicillium roquefort for that. So hopefully that answers your question, Charlie. Deep South Texas, first Gruyere in the press. It looks okay. Inconsistent curd size. What problems should I expect? You may get some bitterness because all the whey wasn't expelled when if you got large curds and small curds. So what I tend to do when I'm stirring is cut the larger chunks that you usually catch them and cut them in half with the side of the spoon is what I normally do when I'm stirring the curds. So you may get a little bit of bitterness, you may not. We'll see. And maybe too much whey. It may be a lot moister than what a traditional Gruyere is. They're fairly dry sorts of cheeses. John said he recently first cut into his first long-aged raw milk Gouda or Gouda. Tastes like a medium cheddar, but with better texture. It's amazing how conditioned we are to production cheeses. Yeah, definitely. Good observation, John. And as home cheesemakers, the good thing is we can age our cheeses as long as we want. We've got no restrictions on, production quotas or anything like that. And we do it for the love of the craft. It's not a job, if you know what I mean. So there's certainly pleasure in making cheese. So very similar to home brewing beer, cider, wines, that sort of thing. You do it purely for the pleasure of it, and you can make the product as bad or as good as you choose because of the ingredients that you use. Okay, Martin says, how did I get into cheese making? I just wanted, I was sick of that rubbish cheese. We're on a changing our lifestyle sort of thing, change to a more sustainable life, and cheese, because both Kim and I love cheese. I thought, well, if I can make my own, that'd be fantastic. So we did. Okay, lots of thank yous. Thank you all back. Elizabeth says hi from Brazil. G'day. Ben says, thanks, Gavin. Your Tiltzer recipe turned out perfect for me. Yeah, it was a great cheese. That's the first cheese that got me onto washed rind cheeses, Tilsit. And since then, I just can't get enough of them. It is a fantastic cheese, beautiful taste. Even though it kind of goes a little bit flat and bulges at the sides, the integrity of the rind is fabulous, and it's very, very good. Oh, thanks, Frank, for a super chat. He's got a question there. Hello from the USA. Love your vids. Ordered some supplies. Looking forward to trying some Jarlsberg, Butakaza, and Camembert or Brie. Thanks. Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it. Now, Elizabeth is talking to me in Portuguese, and I don't understand, unfortunately. Sorry about that. Philip says, hi, Gavin. Does your kefili recipe with 8 litres of milk use only 1/8 of a teaspoon of culture when your recent... Oh, hang on. Why does your kefili recipe with 8 litres of milk use only 1/8 of a teaspoon of culture when your recent lactose-free video 4 litres used the same amount too? So the thing with making larger batches of milk, it's kind of adding the culture is kind of logarithmic. I'll get that out in a minute. So it's not an equal plane, so it's on a curve. So the other way. It's more at the top and then less as you get with more batches of milk. I'm not sure of the reason why. But yeah, I was looking at the recipe I used the kefili recipe, not out of my book, but the one I posted on Little Green Cheese down there. And it asked for I think it was quarter of a teaspoon of culture. So I just halved that whole recipe. So that's where I got it from. I may have modified that in the book, but yeah, an eighth of a teaspoon was fine. And I just used one of the Mad Millie sachets, which is good for 4 litres of milk if you're making soft cheeses and 10 litres of milk for harder cheeses. But Yeah, we'll see how that turns out. I think it's probably better to overculture that cheese than under, because I wanted to see if the starter cultures actually ate the glucose and the galactose. So a bit of an experiment. So maybe hold off on making that one just yet if you were going to make it, until the taste test. So Darren said, "Hi Gavin, you've probably been asked this before, but how to keep your temperature constant with the double boiler method?" Look, the steam seems to take care of itself. So once I get to the target temperature, I just turn the stove off, or maybe a few degrees before, just turn the stove off. And the heat from that steam keeps the entire milk, the one on top, the pot on top, keeps it at the same temperature. Just seems to work. So I don't have any trouble. Some people use sous vides, the stick, and they put that in water and then put the pot in water, so they're heating the water jacket. That seems to work as well. I also says, thanks for the answers. I think I'll give up on the Jarlsberg. I failed on all of them, but my Leicester was amazing. Yeah, Leicester's are nice. I do like the English cheeses. They're quite easy to make. Chris says, why didn't the cheese want to be sliced? It had greater plans. I love your lame cheese jokes. Anyway, Bakir, thanks for all your videos. Anyway, to do similar to Kiri cubes of cheese. Any way to do similar to Kiri? I don't know what Kiri cheese is. I'll have to write that down. I'll check that out. Okay, so Tony says, I've never made cheese, but I've always wanted to give it a go. Be honest, just how easy is it? Being honest, it is fairly easy. There are so many different types of cheese, from the very basic, the start of ricotta and paneer, moving up to, say, halloumi, then mozzarella, and then onto your hard cheeses, and then your bloomy mold ripened cheeses are probably the most difficult. But yeah, look, making on the cheese course that I teach, we teach 3 basic cheeses. So simple: ricotta, paneer, and quick mozzarella. And everybody goes away with perfect cheese that they've made themselves in a 3.5 hour course. So no, it's actually, sorry, 5.5 hour course. What am I talking about? And these people are straight off the street, never made cheese before, and if they can do it just under a little bit of tutelage, then it's easy enough to make. Okay. Are you going to get into a more sustainable living on another channel? I actually do have 2 more channels. So there's Gavin Weber Vlog, which has a lot of sustainable living stuff on it. And we've got a business blog called Little Green Workshops, which, we're part of, Kim and I run. So there's 2 more channels other than this one, the cheese dedicated one. And if you go to my main channel page, you'll see on the right-hand side down the bottom, you'll see links to those 2 channels. Thanks for asking, M. Smith. Brendan, I'm going to make a Christmas Day double cream brie today. If I make it today, it should be ripe for Christmas Day. That's fantastic. I've heard your double bries. It's a die for, Brendan. Mine are okay, but I've heard yours are better. But yeah, there's just something about bloomy cheeses that I just don't get the hang of. But I try my hardest, but they do taste okay. And they're as good as the store-bought ones, so that's all that really matters. But yeah, that's one of the reasons I made the kefili, because they'll be ready for Christmas, and why I made the double Gloucester ages ago. That'll be ready for Christmas as well. That's in my cheese cave. Ethan says, any recommendations on a good slicing cracker cheese for fairly new cheesemaker? To make a good slicing cheese, we do have, we do use quick mozzarella as a nice quick to eat cheese. It only takes 30 minutes to make, with a leaf of basil, some fresh tomatoes from the garden, and a bit of salt and pepper cracked over the top, and that is just simply divine. and it has a fantastic flavour. So you can't really beat that when it comes to quick and dirty cheeses. Um, that'll be ready straight away and are fairly easy to make. Okay, Unknown Publishing says, "Hi Gavin, Debbie here. Made a Buddha following your video. Problem was that it did not air dry that great. Top and bottom was still wet. Any tips you can give me? Probably a little bit longer in the press, Debbie, to expel a bit away, and maybe the curd size could have been smaller. I don't know, but that's one of the reasons why they don't dry out properly during air drying, because they've still got a fair bit of whey that they would just want to leak out. So what I do there usually is, if that's the case, then I just put them on in a maturation box with on the mat, but leave the lid off and air dry that way. That way, any of the whey being expelled doesn't stick on the cheese. It just goes underneath the little mat, and I empty that off once a day, and that helps to air dry it faster if that's the case. I do get that occasionally when my little cheese press, I don't tighten it enough. Anyway, Jacob says, I think that's how you pronounce it. Hi, Gavin. I'd like to ask, could you suggest some cheddar-like cheeses which are possible to make without a cheese cave? Look, I reckon, well, it depends on your climate. If you live in a colder climate, you probably don't need a cheese cave that much. You could use a basement to ripen your cheeses if they were around about 13 degrees. But if your ambient temperature is higher than that, I would say some of the softer cheeses you could ripen. Let me think. See, problem with cheddar is that it takes so long to age, and that's how you get the crumbliness. But Wensleydale, maybe in the fridge. You could probably do Caerphilly in the fridge. That's spelled Caephiilly, Caerphilly. So there's some suggestions there. Lucas says, hello from Maui in Hawaii. I've been there. If you have a fridge at the correct temperature and dedicate to cheese, do I still need maturation boxes? If not, would you recommend a wooden shelf rack or a metal one? Highly recommend wood and pine if you can get it, because the pine absorbs moisture from the cheese and helps mature it. Metal racks just collect whey on top, don't really work that well. But yeah, if you can dedicate your cheese cave and keep the humidity fairly high in it, then that would work. But if you've got different types of cheese, so like you got a blue, so you got a brie, and then you got some cheddars that you're trying to naturally ripen, then you probably won't have much luck because they all get cross-contaminated, which is one of the reasons I use maturation boxes. So no cross-contamination. What is the easiest hard cheese you can recommend for beginners? Once again, Caerphilly. Very easy. You probably saw in that lactose-free video, even though that was a smaller size one, there is a full Caerphilly video, so you can check that out if Kim can pull up the link for Caerphilly. But that is dead easy, really is. Even the cheddaring process is very, very simple for that cheese. Yeah, quite easy. Even Parmesan is easy. There's a Parmesan video. Just go and have a look through the back catalogue. The only thing with the Parmesan is the stirring. I think it takes about an hour to stir the curds, and they end up being about rice grain size. But even Parmesan, for beginners to make, is fairly easy. It's just the maturing time. It takes a long, long time. 12 months for a Parmesan. Anyway, MJ, g'day MJ, how are you? Tony says, thanks for your answer. I love your videos. Thanks, Tony. Unknown Publishing. So I hear you say Alpine cheese, blooming cheese. What does that all mean? I'm newer and just really getting into cheese making. If you go to the main channel page, here's the solution for you. You'll see that I've split all the cheeses up into popular known categories. So there's different categories of cheese. So I've used those as playlists. So have a look at each of the categories, and you'll see what I mean and what I'm talking about. So yeah, there's some suggestions there. Thomas says, cheers, love your videos. Scared to start making cheese. Do you really need a cheese press? Only if you're going to make pressed cheeses. Thomas, fresh cheeses, start off with fresh cheeses. Very simple. Don't need a cheese press. You can add weights on top of the thing, but a lot of people do use a cheese press. It's a lot easier to press cheese than throwing gym barbell weights and stuff on top of your cheese. Philip says, have you ever used chlorinated water? Will boiling my water be enough? Philip, it depends on the type of chlorine they add to your water. There are two types. I cannot remember the names of them, but one does dissipate with boiling. But yeah, give it a try. If you find that the rennet doesn't work properly, then that'll be the culprit. The chlorine in water inhibits the coagulation action of rennet. That's why we use non-chlorinated water with the rennet. Also, chlorine kills bacteria. And because we want our little bacteria in our milk to breed and multiply, we find that the use of chlorinated water inhibits that, kills the bacteria. So we don't want that. Yeah, it depends on the type of chlorine they add to your water supply. If you can get say a Brita filter, so it's a type of filter, or any charcoal filter, that'll get rid of the chlorine. Ilvarka Vajko, could you tell me the difference acidity can you tell me what the difference of acidity of the cheese makes? Yeah, so when we have the starter cultures at the start of most cheeses, that starts to turn lactose into lactic acid, and slightly acidic milk helps the rennet to set the cheese. That's why we need a little bit of acidity at the first stage of the cheese making process. Also, acidity kills off in later stages of cheese making. It kills off any unwanted bacteria that may infect your cheese. So only the good bacteria remain. Hopefully that answers your question. MJ says, tried to buy, I'll start again. Bought Jarlsberg this week, never tried it before, not sure it was off, or is Jarlsberg an acquired taste? No, it should actually taste nutty like an Alpine Emmental. I think it's a lovely taste, so maybe it was off. Sounds a bit like that, MJ. But yeah, Jarlsberg's delicious. It's creamy, nutty. It's just all round lovely, I think. And Kim would agree with me. Jonathan, thank you very much for that super chat there. Appreciate it. Where are we? What else we got? Sharon, hi from Michigan. Hello, how are you? Jacob says, thank you very much. Sharon says, hi, Gavin. I love raw cow's milk clabber cheese. Can I age this raw milk cheese at 50 to 52 degrees? I presume that's Fahrenheit. Should I weigh vinegar wipe it first? How are clabber cheeses flavored? Clabber cheese is basically the natural bacteria taking off and ripening the milk for you without any rennet. So I don't know if they actually age very well at all. But yeah, that's the right temperature to age it, which is 13 degrees Celsius or 50 to 52. Actually, it's 10 to 12 Celsius. And yeah, look, you can press it and yeah, if any mold grows on the outside, you can wipe it. How are they flavored? Well, the bacteria are naturally present in raw milk. So because you have a new starter culture, those cultures may be there. However, the only problem with clabber cheese is that they are very susceptible to being infected with bad bacteria, like Listeria, what's it called? No, not Streptococcus. That's a good bacteria. Um, Botulism's the other one. Yeah, so Listeria and botulism. So just be careful. They're better as a fresh cheese. Probably not so good as a full ripened cheese. D says, I've been watching your video for hours, so relaxing. Yeah, I've been told I'm the Bob Ross of cheese making, apparently. The late, great Bob Ross, great videos. They are very relaxing. And if mine are the same, thank you very much. Jonathan says, forgive me if I've asked this before, but have you ever tried French Epois? I recently had the pleasure, and it was the best cheese I've ever tasted. It was like brie on steroids. I haven't, because they're made from a raw milk, and I don't think Australia imports fresh. Well, it's not fresh. I think they're about 4 weeks old. By the time they get to Australia, and I don't think we're allowed to import it because they're raw milk cheeses. But I'd have to hunt around at some of the cheesemongers in Melbourne to have a look. But I've heard it's a very nice cheese, very stinky, but very nice. Jacob says, maybe a silly question, is it possible to open cheese, then continue in aging? Cheeses like to be whole. That's the best way to mature them. It distributes the fats evenly through the cheese, top and bottom. That's why we turn the cheese weekly when we're maturing them. They don't like to be cut up into wedges and then waxed. They will still age, but you'll find you don't get the same flavour. Okay. Jonathan says, but it cost him $20 for a small wheel. I bet it did too. Thanks, Kim, for that link to Caerphilly style cheese. Am I familiar with Pannon cheese? No, I'm not. Hey, you jumped my question. I can't get to all the questions, Georgios. Do it again. Oh, you're driving. Right. Where's Georgios? Here's a picture. What gives the taste? The milk or rennet or the culture? I want to make feta cheese. Watch your video, but I don't know where in Europe I can find the same cultures you're using. The taste comes from the milk. It also comes from the starter cultures. It comes from how much salt you add. There's so many variables, Georgios, very hard to put my finger on it, but everything you add to the cheese affects the taste of the cheese. There should be somewhere. Europe's full of cheeses, so I'm sure there is somewhere you can buy the starter cultures. Just look for something that's suitable for feta. There are a lot of culture developers. You know, there's I know in Italy, Sacco. There's a French company. Oh, I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, lots and lots of starter culture companies in Europe, and they all have specific strains for different types of cheeses. Just have a look at the manufacturing sheets, and you'll be fine. Okay. Unknown Publishing maturing box. So when the cheese comes out of the cheese press, do you air dry it and then put it at the cheese in the box and in the cheese cave? Or do you leave it in the box the whole aging time? Depends on the cheese. So if it's a mold ripened cheese, bloomy cheese that has white mold or blue mold, then I keep it in the maturation box the entire time because it needs a high humidity. If I'm trying to create a natural rind, then I'll put it in the maturing box for the first probably 2-3 weeks, and then maybe I'll vacuum pack the cheese, and a lot less mucking around then. And sometimes I leave cheeses just on the shelf. If I want a really thick rind, it'll dry out a lot quicker. But yeah, definitely air dry it at room temperature first until it feels like a clammy handshake, and then pop it into the cheese fridge or however you're gonna mature it. SRM Fish says, do rehydrated dry fruit to add to your curd. And thanks so. Oh, should you rehydrate dry fruit? Yes. So when you add any dried fruits to your cheese, just boil them in, or just simmer them in quarter of a cup of water for about 15 minutes so they plump up again. Because you want to try and get rid of some of that sulfur that usually they dry fruit with. So because sulfur will kill off the bacteria and enzymes. So you want to rehydrate that fruit. That gets rid of the sulfur around the fruit. Also, it plumps it up a little bit so it doesn't suck all the moisture out of your cheese as it's aging. Okay, the Jarlsberg I had was sour. There's something wrong there. It doesn't taste sour normally. Sharon says, have you ever heard of freezing cultured butter before churning to make butter come faster? So, have I heard of freezing cultured butter? No, I haven't. I've just heard that you culture it overnight at room temperature and then churn it. But anyway. Yep, so I answered Georgios's question. Nicholas says, what size pot do you use to make a cheese recipe that takes 8 litres of milk? Well, I've got a 14 and a half litre pot, so that's what I use, which is 2 gallons, and that seems to work okay. So that comes halfway out the pot. Seems easy to use. You can get 10 litre or 10 quart size pots. So as long as it's not sitting right at the top of the pot, which is prone for mistakes, the milk that is. So yeah, that's the size pot I use. And so I can use up to about 12 litres of milk in that 14 litre pot without too much mess and no spillage and stuff like that. Seems to work fine. Okay, Jonathan says, yeah, mine was a version using pasteurised milk. It was still amazing. USA is about the same way for raw milk. Yeah, if you're close to where they make those cheeses, then it's fine. The longer you're away, the more of a chance you have of the cheese becoming infected. So, what can you do? Okay, Martin says, hey, Gavin, have you experimented with infusing cannabis in cheese and aging it? No, I haven't. But it sounds like something to try. But unfortunately, cannabis is not legal here in any states in Australia. We've only just got medicinal cannabis, which is in a liquid form for medicinal purposes. But yeah, cannabis is illegal here in Australia still. Anyway, Sharon says, can I use an aluminium pot for cheese making? Sharon, unfortunately not, because aluminium is a reactive metal, or for the pots they are anyway, and milk likes to react with aluminium and it imparts a metallic taste, and you'll have heavy metals in your cheese, and that's no good for anybody. So stainless steel is the best. Okay, D says, I have to go now. Thanks for the vids. Keep calm, mate. Cheese. Have a wonderful day. See you later. Giorgio says, thanks a lot, my lovely Australian friend. Thank you, Georgios. Ethan, your mold ripened cheese, is it the way, is the way it ages? No, you actually add molds to the milk at the start of the process, and then you age it in a special way, higher humidity. And in fact, I've got to check out my Same on Cell, which is, I don't have a video of yet. It's in production. That's a blue cheese, so I've got to check if that's got some blue on it today. That'll be very interesting. Okay, Brugy, I think that's how you pronounce it. How do you know if the fungus on the cheese you're aging is the right kind and not some dangerous kind of fungus? Okay, yeah, pretty easy. There's a few that are unwanted. So there's a pink mold, which imparts a bit of flavour on your cheese. You don't want that on there. There's a grey mold, which is not so bad. That kind of incorporates with some of the natural molds. That's not harmful. But there is a black mold, which is called cat's whiskers, because it has these really long filaments that come out. If you get black mold on your cheese, you're going to have to either try and get it off with salt and vinegar, or cut it out of the cheese, because it has fairly deep roots. So yeah, they're the sorts of ones you're trying to avoid. Everything else, so white, off-white, cream, Any type of blue or green molds are good. They're from the Penicillium family, and they're all good, all fair game, I reckon. And obviously red mold, which is Brevibacterium linens, which is for washed mold cheese, washed rind cheeses. Gives that orange or red colour to the outside of your cheese. Unknown Publishing says, so when the cheese is not completely dry after 5 days, you just let it sit longer or until it is dry and room temperature. Sorry, this is my first time I made Buddha and I'm worried it goes bad. Yeah, so just leave it a bit longer. So where I say 2 to 3 days in most recipes, that's an arbitrary figure until your cheese is, like I say, like a clammy handshake. Don't let it dry out completely because that's when it'll start getting cracks. So like a clammy handshake, and then it's right to go to the next stage. So it's not moist, it just feels like a clammy handshake. And you'll know what I mean, you know, when you shake somebody with a sweaty palm, that's what it feels like, right? Okay, so moving on. Ethan says, do you need to hydrate peppers for Monterey pepper jack? Yes, you do, because it sucks all the moisture out of the cheese otherwise. Sharon says, thank you for your answers. Thank you. We're at the 46-minute mark. I'm going to call it. These are the last few questions. Roman says, just want to say hello from Poland. Love your recipes. I'm making cheddar right now. Well done. Frank says, got thinking about your answers on pot size. Australia, I'm sure, uses imperial gallons and US gallons is 3.8 versus. Yeah, look, we don't have any gallons at all. We use metric. So I'm just converting for the Americans. That's it. MJ found some cream cheese in the back of the fridge with pink mold on it growing. Throw it away. I wouldn't eat it. Thanks for awesome videos. This is from 13BM90. Tell me if milk is sufficient high quality to make cheese. Is it simply taste or is a certain lab test to decide that? If it's store-bought milk, they're all fairly good. If you can get unhomogenized, that's the best. I've got a whole milk video. Go and check it out in the back catalogue. Tells you about different milk types. Lots of people say got to run. Anyway, thank you very much. Of course, there's merch in the merch store. Not this T-shirt. I bought this somewhere else. But mugs say Certified Curd Nerd, and you can get T-shirt and all that sort of stuff. Kim's put up the link for the merch shop there. Don't forget you can become a patron where you can support us monthly, even for, I think it's as low as $1 US, over at patreon.com. And don't forget you can buy all the kits and all that sort of good gear. And Christmas is coming up, so you can get a kit for your cheese-loving loved one, like the ones up there, over at our shop at littlegreenworkshops.com.au, which Kim will pop a link up in a second. Thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate it. And thank you, the guys and girls that left super chats. Appreciate that too. And that'll keep the show going. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, or same cheesy time, same cheesy channel, I should say. Yep, thanks for Kim for moderating, as always. She does a great job there in the other room. And I really do appreciate her helping me out with these live streams every week. Anyway, we'll see you later, Curd Nerds. This week's video, I'm tossing up between Tom and a cheese press video. So watch for that. It'll be either Saturday or Sunday, depending on where you live. Thanks so much for coming along today and joining me on Ask the Cheeseman.
Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. G'day, Curd Nerds.
Well, g'day, Curd Nerds.
Well, g'day, Curd Nerds.
Well, g'day, Curd Nerds. Well, g'day, Curd Nerds.